Hello, everyone. I am thrilled to have Ben Sieke with us today. And he is somebody I've known for a while in the learning and development world, and he's just done tremendous things. Recently been a leader at a company that he'll tell you about. So over to you, Ben.
Yeah, Bobby, it's so good to get to spend this time together with you, and excited to get to have this conversation. So I'm a learning and talent leader. Most recently, I spent 6 years and change leading the learning function at Delta Dental. I was with some other iconic brands, Guitar Center and Weight Watchers before that, always in the learning and talent and human resource space, because I know, like you, I just find human beings endlessly fascinating. And what's key, and this is going to sound a little like cliche and corny and HRy, but I'm an HR guy and I believe this stuff is, what separates successful organizations from the others is the ability to get all of the people in them working together and interacting well together. And when we do that, we win together. And when we don't, we see organizations struggle. So it's really fun work that we both get to do.
Love it, Ben. Thank you. And I'm going to tie that in with all the buzz about AI. And I'm a big fan, by the way. I love using my chat GPT. But the piece that you're bringing in is really the human to human that we haven't officially called H2H, but I believe our job is really to be stewards of the H2H. And as far as I can tell, at least in my lifetime, I think humans are going to still exist. And the question is, are we going to coexist together in harmony or are we going to be in conflict? So that's what led me to this topic of respect. And by the way, like you just said, like may sound cliched, a lot have people who've been on this podcast have said, hey, when I first thought about it, respect is so basic, but we've been unpacking different aspects to it. So that's what I'm excited to hear your perspective on respect. So let's kick off with, so Ben, how do you define respect in the workplace?
For such a, as you put it, basic concept, that's a hard question to answer, isn't it? Right? Because respect is a feeling, right? Respect is behaviors, right? I mean, respect can be a lot of different things. For me, it is seeing and valuing others and feeling seen and valued myself. And I'll say too, it's hard as I reflect on this to think about respect and not trying to go down a rabbit hole here either, but not think about the related concepts of inclusion, of psychological safety. Because I also think, how can you feel respected if you don't feel safe? How can you feel respected if you don't feel like you have a place in the group and that you belong here, right? So, yeah, it's both, I think, in my mind, a set of feelings that we have and also a set of practices that demonstrate how we feel that about others.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks, Ben. And I've said it often on this podcast, but I'm going to repeat it for those who might be listening for the first time. One of my favorite data points, and I quote a lot of data from big places like McKinsey and Gallup and Gartner, but this is from Oprah Winfrey on her last show, the episode, and you may have heard me talk about this before, but I want to repeat it for everybody. The only time she did a monologue at the end of 25 years, 45-minute monologue on her stage to share her wisdom of those 30,000 plus interviews she did. And she said across all of those guests, there's one thing in common: validation. So it's exactly what you just said and how you define respect, Ben, is do you see me? Do you hear me? And does what I say matter to you?
Well, it's always an honor, Bobby, to be aligned with Oprah, right? I think you're on the right side of things when you and Oprah are agreeing, right?
I agree, my friend. I would hope so. I would hope so, in a very polarized world. So I don't know if every listener would agree, but I certainly feel that way. And I'm very blessed to have gained the wisdom that she brings to the world. Yeah. So yeah, you started going a bit deeper then in terms of behavior, psychological safety, and how you define respect. So talk to us about how does it show up when you have a culture, an environment where you feel people feel respected, and the impact of that on the business and on the culture.
It's another really good question. And I think part of the nuance, you made such a good point earlier, Bobby, about on the one hand that this is basic, but it's so nuanced, right? Because what respect might feel like to me might feel different than how respect feels to you, right? And I know I listening to one of your earlier podcasts, right? One of your guests, and you were talking about this, and you turned your guest onto the platinum rule, right? The golden rule is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. The platinum rule is essentially do unto others as they would have them done to them. I'm not paraphrasing well, right? But um, so some of this I think is a practice, right? Like it's not about perfection because again, the humanity is endlessly diverse, and so we're always trying to show respect in the best ways that we can, and that involves listening to others and getting feedback and sensing others. For me, something that's been really important to feel respected has been feeling heard. That's something as I've gone through my last couple leadership transitions in my last role, that was always something I would start with as table stakes, right? And feeling heard is not the same as always being agreed with. It's not the same as always getting what you want. Um, but I really truly feel respected if I feel like you took the time and value me enough to hear what I have to say, whether you end up agreeing with me or not. Um, so I think with that, also feeling like my perspective is valued, which is different from again someone agreeing with my perspective, right? That shows that respect. In fact, I think that's one of the highest ways, the highest forms of respect, is being able to say, even if we disagree, even if we don't see things the same way, that because I respect you, I still respect your opinion, even if I don't share it.
Yep. Yep. And then going there, right? Because I think often I do believe we have a bit of a passive aggressive culture globally in businesses where people would rather be kind and not go there to have those tough conversations. So I often say a topic like respect is actually a very courageous and bold thing to step into. It isn't just simply giving it a happy, emoji and moving on. So yeah, and then the concept of improv, right, with the yes and is such a great, simple but powerful lesson in how we can really, by saying yes, I don't mean I agree with you, I just mean I hear you.
Yeah.
And then I get to speak my perspective as well. And also I think, we speak a lot in learning and development around active listening. And I think we still have a long ways to go with that, where most people convey or interpret active listening as not interrupting someone. But the bigger job is really, can I stop the chatter in my mind so I can really hear and seek to understand you? And man, that's difficult. So I'm going to actually connect it with another related piece that I bet, Ben, you've done a lot with, is in my experience, when we look at personality types with all the different assessments we have, extrovert, introvert is always the most interesting for me. I'm an extrovert. I'm a reluctant extrovert. And what helped me understand the distinction is one simple thing, which is, do I think, edit, and speak all at the same time? That's option A. Option two is I think, I edit, and maybe I speak. That's option B. Where do you land, Ben?
Oh, that's a good question. And it's another one of these definitional things, Bobby, right? Like, because I would describe myself as an outgoing introvert. Like no one would call me shy, for example. Um, but I think the concept I have in my head of what makes someone an introvert or an extrovert, and to your point, there's a lot of ways to define that. Also, it's a spectrum, right? It's not a cut and dry black and white thing. Um, is where our energy comes from. And so I love people. I care deeply about people. At the end of the day, I mean, you and I have talked about our backgrounds and our work facilitating. As an introvert, at the end of the day, facilitating, my heart is full, but I am wiped. Um, it's funny, to your point about editing and right, does it all come out at once? Does it, am I processing? It depends a lot, interestingly, on the situation. And anytime I've taken like personality assessments or reflected on this stuff, because it's a spectrum, I'm not, I'm somewhere close to the middle. Maybe I'm an
Yeah.
ambivert.
No, yeah, it makes perfect sense. We definitely are aligned on that. It is definitely a spectrum, and it's quite common to be in the middle. The other piece I think I'm hearing in what you're saying, Ben, is tied to that psychological safety. The situational difference becomes like, gee, if I'm comfortable with you, I can riff and, go anywhere and not worry about, that I may need to edit versus standing in front of a board where you're asking for millions of dollars or some big business decision. I bet just plays different. Plays out. Okay, so we got the what good respect looks like in a culture. What about when it isn't present? What happens then, and what does that look like?
So the easiest way I think to answer that would be the inverse, right? Not feeling heard, not feeling like my perspective is valued. I'll add to that though, and to your point, drawing off of research from the McKinseys, the Gartners, I tend not to feel respected if I don't also feel cared about. Like I want to feel seen as a human being, right? I know I want to feel like the people around me, and not just my leader, but my colleagues, my clients and partners in the organization value me as a human being in the same way that I value them as a human being. Because I don't know, Bobby, I think you and I view this very similarly, but there's, I think, a lot of folks in the world that feel like human relationships work fundamentally differently in the workplace than they do outside of the workplace. And certainly our relationships and how we behave are contextual. But at the end of the day, we're all human beings. And I believe that the most valuable relationships that we have, whether those are in work, whether they're outside of work, are the ones that are rooted on respect and caring, because those are very human things that are, again, I think just foundational to valuable relationships.
Yep, absolutely. And I love that nuance because it's very easy to just point at all the data around toxic cultures. I think the more common aspect is the sort of the sublim, undercurrent of that just sense of feeling disrespected. So Ben, as you know, I always ask my guests, what are your top tips? 1 to 3 things that people can take away in terms of how to have more respect in the workplace.
No, I love it. And I think first thing that comes to mind for me is, and this might not be a hot take, but it's something I certainly had to learn over time and something I have to continue to practice, that work is about relationships. Earlier in my career, I used to prioritize the work over everything else. Um, that's not a good way to get work done. It's much better to build respect-based relationships, caring-based relationships, and work together to get things done. So there's, I think that mindset shift for any of us that aren't already there, because these are humans that we're working with, and humans have feelings, right? I mean, we're complicated beings in that way. I think the word authentic is really important. It kind of goes back to us talking about inclusion and belonging and psychological safety. It's hard for people to trust and respect you if they don't know who you are and they don't really have a feeling of who you are. And I think that goes both ways, right? So showing up as your authentic self and also being interested and curious about getting to know other people's authentic selves, right? What do you know about folks' hobbies and interests and passions outside of work? And if that doesn't feel relevant to you, I mean, I know it does to you, Bobby. I'm speaking to the universe here, right? If you're thinking, why does that stuff matter? We're at work. Again, because we're people, we care about being cared about. Um, and so, yeah, I would say, I mean, I think those are a couple of the top tips, and to really focus on being a human first, building those relationships. If you're a people leader, viewing that work as leading truly people, not just the work, because the work gets done through the people. But at the end of the day, our individual relationships, our experience at work, and the work that we do on a broader scale are all better when we anchor that in respectful, caring relationships.
Brilliant, Ben. And what I heard also in those tips is connecting peace with something that we intersect with often is trust versus respect. Everything you just laid out is actually the definition of that distinction. That trust is quite transactional. Like, do I trust you to give you an assignment or delegate something to you? I believe that even before trust comes respect, which is about the human-human connection.
I love that. But yeah, how can you trust someone that you don't respect?
Exactly. We can't
Starts
even go
there.
up the 5 dysfunctions of a team, thank you, Patrick Lencioni, unless we have respect, right?
I,
So that's what I've been believing in. I love that framework, but it's missing respect. And so let's really bring that in before we go up that pyramid. Well, Ben, thank you so much. It's been a delight to have you. Like you said, we could go on forever, but I'm just glad we got this glimpse to understand how you view respect.
I feel very respected, Bobby, that you would have me on to hear that point of view. So I appreciate you for that.
Thank you very much.